Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. My name is Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm here with my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian. Life is hard. Let's all kill ourselves. Eat some waffles. Oh, we can't kill ourselves. Bah, wah.
So we have just come off an episode in our season on the films of 1999 that made Jason very angry.
Yeah, that movie should have killed itself.
And now we're on to an episode
a lot of
that
suicide this season. Have you
seems
noticed
like
that? Virgin suicides?
Oh yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah.
You know, well,
Death in the Sixth Sense. Maybe not suicide, although I'm sure there was some suicide.
Yeah,
in there.
possibly.
And
Oh yeah, the guy at the beginning of the Sixth Sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Kills
Yeah,
himself.
Yeah, that's true.
then Wild Wild West, the suicide of Barry Sonnenfeld's directing career. And now we're on to another movie dealing with suicide. What a theme we've uncovered for 1999.
1999, the greatest year for film and suicide. So this is our episode on the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner, and that is Rosetta from Belgian brothers Luc and Jean-Pierre Dardenne, who are major figures of world cinema. And this is their fourth feature film, I believe.
Their big breakout.
But it was their big breakthrough. Yes, it was, winning at Cannes. And this was the start of their position as sort of these festival darlings. And again, major figures in world cinema where every time they make a movie, it's an event.
Yeah. And this is, I don't have the whole list in front of me, but probably the least known of the movies we're covering this season, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. The Dardennes are certainly very well known within certain cinephile circles, but whether they're that well known in the mainstream, probably not.
Well, Josh, I'm a cinephile.
You are.
And they were not known in my circle.
Okay, well, I'm glad
just me.
Your circle is just you. Oh, it's a kind of a lonely little circle there.
Well, this is the year of suicide we're talking about.
All right. So. Are you okay, Jason?
Yeah, I'm not gonna kill myself.
Okay, good to know.
Thankfully.
Yes, we are thankful for that.
Yeah. So, but this movie, I could see how people on the brink, this could be like, yeah, I am going to go kill myself.
It is certainly a depressing movie, which as someone who has seen multiple Dardenne brothers movies is kind of their thing. They have a very unsparing view of life, which I think can be bracing and can be refreshing because they're not candy coating things, but it is also super depressing at times.
If I read correctly, they grew up in like the French speaking part of Belgium. Nice countryside, pretty good stuff. Like, what's your deal, Dardennes?
Sometimes, you gotta, even if you come from a privileged background, you feel like you want to show the range of humanity. I'm okay with it.
Belgian privilege.
Yeah, I guess so. So this film did, in addition to winning the Palme d'Or at Cannes, it also won the Best Actress Award at Cannes for Émilie Dequenne.
Her debut, correct?
Her debut, yes, her first role, and quite an impressive. I think regardless of what you think of this film, pretty impressive debut for her.
She can definitely walk in a brisk pace.
That's a very important aspect of being in a Dardenne brothers movie.
Well, she does a lot of brisk walking in this film, so she nailed that. No, she's good at this film, obviously.
Yes, I think
she went on. She's a working star actress.
Yeah,
Europe,
this was certainly a good launch for her career, and she got tons of acclaim for this film. And this movie actually made some money. It grossed $5.6 million worldwide, which is, I think a pretty good number for something this bleak and uncompromising. Of course, only $267,000 of that was in the U.S. So here in the U.S., we don't want to be confronted with the harsh reality of life.
Whatever. Cinema's, like you said, a worldwide global phenomenon, Josh. So
that it is.
We don't know what it cost, though, this movie.
I couldn't find anything on what it cost. I'm sure it can't have been very much. It's a very simple, spare, pared down kind of thing.
Waffles aren't expensive to make.
No. There are a lot of waffles in this film. Quite a Belgian stereotype.
Dave doesn't eat the carbs anymore. You off of waffles altogether. Is there a keto waffle?
They're absolutely, there's very much chaffles. They're made out of cheese and egg.
Oh, that's
Are there Belgian chaffles?
I suppose that would be possible.
Are the chaffles good?
I love them. They're so good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can you put syrup or is it chirrup?
You could get some keto syrup.
You got chaffles in the house right now?
No, but I can make you some.
Yeah, I'd like a chaffle. I would eat it on the air right now.
All right.
So.
Let's table that.
Yeah.
This movie, it was also submitted by Belgium as its official selection for the Best Foreign Language Film Oscar, although it was not nominated for that.
Declined.
Yes. It was nominated for Best Foreign Film at the Independent Spirit Awards. That's it, I think, in terms of the U.S. awards, but it also was given some various awards in Europe, which Jason may have written down.
I do have many for you, Josh. So it won the Joseph Plateau Award for Best Belgian Actress, which, of course, was our lovely leading lady, Émilie Dequenne.
Emily, I think.
Émilie Dequenne.
Yeah.
And, of course, it won the André Cavens Award for Best Film in Belgium, which the Dardennes now have a record of 5 André Cavens Award for Best Film.
I mean, I would have to wonder, like, are there other Belgian filmmakers that are this well known?
There's one other that has 5 also.
Oh, okay.
I forget who. And the Chicago Film Critic Association.
Oh, there's an American organization.
Awards gave Émilie Dequenne a tie for most promising actress with an actress named Julia Stiles for 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah. Thankfully, hopefully Émilie Dequenne cannot speak English and or does not listen to obscure movie podcasts.
I am bad at pronunciation.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep butchering her name over and over again.
I don't mean that disrespectfully.
No.
As you said, she's very good in this.
She is very good in this film. And this film was very well regarded by critics in the US. Again, it was a breakout for the Dardennes. I would imagine at least a good number of critics and cinephiles here were probably familiar with their previous film, La Promesse, which was also highly acclaimed. But this was really the one that got a lot of the media attention. It got 2 thumbs up from Roger Ebert and his guest critic at the time, Michaela Pereira, although she did complain about the shaky cam, which is a
lot of
prevalent element of this film. Yes, a lot of handheld cinematography in this film. So Roger Ebert, in his review, said, "The film has an odd subterranean power. It doesn't strive for our sympathy or make any effort to portray Rosetta as colorful, winning, or sympathetic. It's a film of economic determinism, the story of a young woman for whom employment equals happiness. Or so she thinks until she has employment and is no happier, perhaps because that is something she has simply never learned to be." I think that's a key element, not only of this film, but all the Dardenne films, is that like the kind of character that you would think would be likable or sympathetic is not.
Like Julia Stiles. She is very likable in 10 Things I Hate About You.
She is.
I disagree with Ebert, Josh.
Oh, okay.
I don't think she equates employment with happiness. Employment is a necessity for this person to survive on every single level.
Yes.
Her mother is trading sexual favors for alcohol does not work. She's clearly an addict of some type, right? They're turning off the heat and she lives in a trailer park, I mean, she needs the job here.
She does, but I think one thing is that she is obsessed with the idea of getting a job rather than accepting any help. There's a scene where she goes to the like welfare/unemployment office and they tell her, well, you can't get unemployment because you weren't employed long enough. At the beginning of the movie, she's being fired from looks like a factory job of some kind. It's unclear. And she's very upset about this.
Yeah, she's not doing anything to ingratiate herself to like if there are rehires or something.
No. So she tries to get unemployment, but they say she wasn't there long enough. And then the clerk says, well, you can apply for welfare. And she won't do that. She leaves. And the idea that her mom has been getting charity from someone, she is sort of unwilling to accept help, even when it is offered to her as an option.
When you say her mom's been getting charity, will you please clarify?
Well, right. You say that she is trading sexual favors, and that's true. But there's also where she says, "Oh, someone gave me this because they mend clothes for people, right? That's one of the things they do.
Yeah.
And she says, or she cleans houses.
But isn't it alcohol? It's always alcohol, right? Like
that alcohol? I thought that was maybe food. It's hard to see what they're fighting over in that scene, but maybe you're right. Maybe that was.
I thought she took it because the mom's an alcoholic and she's always.
I mean, there is that, but I feel like there's also the idea that like if you were given something, like we don't take handouts, even though they desperately need them.
Yeah,
she'll only get it if it's employment. So I mean, in that sense, whether Ebert is right that she thinks it's going to make her happy, maybe not, but she is obsessed with that as the idea of how to help herself.
I'm about to take a chaffle handout whenever I get the chance.
Yeah, exactly. Lisa Schwartzbaum in Entertainment Weekly said, made by Belgian-born brothers Luc and Jean-Pierre Dardenne, whose previous feature, La Promesse, was equally perceptive about people surviving in the economic margins, Rosetta stuns by closing in almost claustrophobically on the small, repetitive gestures of despair and determination. The girl clings to normalcy through a sequence of daily rituals from the fetching of water to the changing of shoes. Defying pity and demanding a chance, Rosetta is a character of raw pride in a film of lingering power.
So she's echoing kind of what we just argued about. Maybe I missed it. I just thought that, pride, stubborn, however you want to call it, like she makes a lot of mistakes here that could make her life easier if she would just chill out.
Right. Well, I think that is the idea.
Maybe she should drink some of that alcohol that her mom's got stashed away.
Those mistakes come from her weird sense of pride that she is only willing to sort of accept, money or success or whatever if it comes in this very specific way. And it leads her to make these decisions that are really not good decisions and not helpful to her.
Yeah. Like almost killing that dude.
Yeah, she almost kills him because
she wants to work.
She wants his job, right?
I think that's a good defense. Like,
no, it's not a defense.
If I just let you drown, then I could have that job at the waffle station or whatever.
Right. It's definitely it's not a defense, but it's sort of a reflection of her warped sense of what is acceptable.
Yeah. Okay.
So Stephen Holden in the New York Times was less enthusiastic, and given my anticipation of Jason's lower enthusiasm for this movie, I wanted to get an alternative perspective. He said, Rosetta, Luc and Jean-Pierre Dardenne's terminally bleak, stoically drab portrait of a desperate 17-year-old Belgian girl comes decorated with honors that most filmmakers would kill to have attached to their work. This grim quasi-documentary filmed with handheld cameras, in places it's almost as jiggly as the Blair Witch Project, picked up the top prize at this year's Cannes Film Festival and a Best Actress award for its chunky, rosy-cheeked star.
So unnecessary.
It really is. Émilie Dequenne. But Rosetta is so clinically detached from its subject and its screenplay so minimal that we never really feel the title character's intense suffering or even get to know her very well. As she spirals into despair, the film's heavy social realist angst feels more than a little contrived. So his unnecessary dig at her appearance aside.
With all that walking in the movie, you would think she would lose those love handles, right? Like, what kind of review is this?
That is really inappropriate.
Totally unnecessary on his part.
Yes.
What quasi-documentary, are we just talking about? Is he saying stylistically?
I think he's just saying stylistically that this feels like, and the Dardenne brothers came from documentary is their background.
There's nothing quasi-documentary about this. This is shot in that very naturalistic, almost, kind of Dogma 95-ish, let's just put the camera in and go type way.
Yeah, but
there are lights though.
Right, but there's no score, which is a hallmark of especially the early Dardenne brothers films. But I don't think you could ever look at this and think, oh, this is a documentary, like they're really following this girl around.
Yeah, but are either of the Dardenne brothers overweight? Because that's really important to how I feel about this film.
Yeah. The way that some critics talked about the appearances of actors is pretty retrograde, even in 1999.
Yeah. It's just like such an unnecessary detail about, like, it doesn't play anything. Like, if there was something about her weight that played into the movie, I could see saying like, oh, she's chunky, or she is too thin and has an eating disorder.
Right. If she's concerned about that or it affects her story. But
right. Yes, like Christian Bale with The Machinist was too thin. And we all know De Niro gained weight to play Jake LaMotta. But this is just like, why pick on this wonderful, yes, depressing, but like good performance here.
Right. No, it is really gratuitous. But I mean, in terms of the idea of this being just sort of grim and detached, and did you feel like you understood the character or understood her suffering?
Yeah, but also like like I said, she makes it harder on herself in ways that you know, you're not necessarily supposed to be sympathetic to her anyway. Like when she almost murders that guy, right?
Yes.
So like, yeah, I mean, you understand it, but like it is grim, it is desolate, it is emotionally draining. But does that all add up for something like emotionally satisfying? Not necessarily for me.
Right. I mean, and I think some of that is the idea that you would expect in a movie like this to be on that character's side. And so it's sort of jarring.
Well, that's the detachment.
Yeah. Right? To realize that maybe you're not, or it's really hard to be on her side, even though maybe she's
chunky.
It. Right. Yeah.
That's, so how can you root for
I know it's clearly impossible.
A woman that's like 10 pounds overweight,
right,
in a movie from 1999. No, that's just
clearly Stephen Holden cannot. That did it for him.
So I don't understand.
No, it was impossible.
She's not even really chunky.
She's really not. She's really not at all. That wasn't something that I noticed at all watching this film.
She's pretty fit. Like, yeah. But even if she was fat, who would care? Like, I just don't get it.
No, that is again gratuitous. Something you would expect from like Rex Reed, who's always commenting on that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't even think we got that from our friend Bosley Crowther back in.
No, at least not in anything that we've talked about. Yeah. So Jason, obviously you're not familiar with the Dardennes.
Totally new to them. Totally new to this film.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of the times when we do something like this and it's a filmmaker I haven't seen before, I'll be like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to deep dive them. I kind of need a rest.
No more Dardenne films for you?
I'm not saying I wouldn't watch other movies, but I don't think I could watch more than one in a row, like one a day. Like that would be bad. That would be bad for my mental health.
It is tough. So I will say I had not seen this film before, but I had seen, before watching this, I think 4 other Dardenne brothers films, although not in quite a while. And so I did decide, like, especially because we ended up recording this podcast a couple days later than we initially planned, and I had some extra time, and I was like, I'm gonna watch another one because it's been a while. Yeah. And so I watched The Kid with a Bike from 2011, which is actually similar in a lot of ways to Rosetta in that it has this younger than Rosetta, but a young character who you would think would be sympathetic, but is extremely unpleasant.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt that watching that fairly close on the heels of Rosetta. He was not chunky. He was actually quite thin.
Bike,
no, yeah, he was in good shape. He did a lot of bike riding, a lot of running. He's very fast, the kid.
Yeah.
But watching that film, I was like, yeah, this is too much Dardennes for me. And that has
that's just one after.
Yeah. So I don't love. I think, you know, they're hugely acclaimed. Not only this film, but almost all of their films. And I don't really ever feel that level of enthusiasm. I can respect what they do and appreciate it, but it is a lot.
It's not for me, but that's okay. It doesn't mean it's like the last one we covered, Wild Wild West, when I'm like, it's not for me. I'm like, it's probably not. It shouldn't be for anybody. But this one, I'm like, it's not for me. But go with grace, gents. Go with God. Enjoy, and you know, find your audience, which they clearly have, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
But Josh, you mentioned the Kid with the Bike.
Yes.
It did win the Grand Prix at the Palme d'Or festival known as Cannes. That's the word I'm looking for. The Palme d'Or is the top prize.
Yes, the Grand Prix is the second prize.
Yeah. So that when that was there.
Yeah, and really, like, this was sort of the establishment with Rosetta, where like they're always at Cannes. Basically, they could do whatever. They could make Wild Wild West 2, and Cannes would be like, okay, we'll take it.
Well, I mean, film festivals have legacy, you know, directors.
Right,
so,
right.
I mean, you know, Sundance could show Yoga Hosers, right? Or something
yeah,
like that.
Did they? I wonder.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I don't know if he wanted that.
No, probably not.
So.
So Dave, had you seen this or any Dardenne movies?
No, I had heard of them as one of those celebrated filmmakers, but no, never. And I think I liked it better than Jason, but I completely agree with him. One at a time is probably the way to experience them.
You're not in for a Dardenne marathon?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I mean, they were highly acclaimed recently, like last year for Young Ahmed, right?
Yeah, that was actually one of their less acclaimed films where some of the reviews are like, maybe this is not a masterpiece. And people are like amazed that that's the case. So it is kind of almost overblown when you read about any Dardenne brothers film and how brilliant it is. But anything else on the background here you want to mention, Jason?
Let's see, Josh. I think you covered it pretty well there. 10 Things I Hate About You also starred Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And Larry Miller played the dad.
Yeah. What if the Dardenne brothers had directed 10 Things I Hate About You?
That would be a cool, like, new way to reboot it.
That would be something.
Do you want to know who was on the jury that year? I can tell you.
Oh, yeah. Who was on the Cannes jury?
So some of the it was Cronenberg. I think David Cronenberg was the head of the jury. George Miller, who we love, George Miller.
Yeah,
Mad
sure.
Max. Holly Hunter and Jeff Goldblum here.
Yeah.
Other movies that played at Cannes that year, Josh. All About My Mother, which did win Best Foreign Film.
Yeah, Pedro Almodovar. That's a great movie.
The Emperor and the Assassin, dope movie.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, Jim Jarmusch.
Uh-huh.
Limbo, John Sayles. We talked about
I like that one. Talk about a depressing movie. Limbo, yeah.
The Straight Story, another friend of ours.
This is quite a lineup, yeah.
And Wonderland. Is that Winterbottom or who's?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Wonderland. I know it's another big director there.
So yeah, and this was a unanimous choice. Sometimes the Cannes jury can get very contentious.
Yeah,
but this was not the case for Rosetta.
And sometimes, like this year, they can just announce the winner when they're not supposed to, right?
That does happen as well.
Spike Lee's jury.
Yeah, well, he's an unconventional guy.
Yeah, Winterbottom.
Michael Winterbottom directed.
So like that's a pretty big list of well-known movies and well-known directors.
Yeah.
This just kind of broke through that.
And they did break through there. So we'll come back then in a moment and talk about our general thoughts on Rosetta. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1999, we are talking about the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner, Rosetta, from brothers Jean-Pierre and Luc Dardenne. And Jason, you weren't really into this movie?
No, I wasn't really into it. Didn't hate it, so I'm not gonna crush it.
Not like you did to Wild Wild West,
which deserved all the crushings.
Yeah.
Were you into it?
I mean, I think, like I said about the Dardennes in general, I can appreciate and admire what they do, and yet not necessarily enjoy the experience of watching the movie.
Yeah.
I think as far as the spectrum of their films go, of the ones that I've seen, I liked this more than some others. I liked it more than The Kid with a Bike, which, like I said, I watched like 2 days later. I just watched that last night. And that was a movie where the main character, the kid, who does have
not
a name.
The bike.
Not the bike, although the bike is in it.
That's like the secondary lead.
Yeah. Was just so unpleasant that I could not invest myself in his story and whether things would work out for him or not. Yeah. Whereas Rosetta,
but we know you hate kids, as proven on this podcast.
I do hate kids, and when I was thinking like maybe I'll watch another Dardenne brothers movie, and I picked that one, and then I fairly quickly into it, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe this was the wrong choice for me, because I'm disinclined to like even movies where everyone loves the kid and finds them cute. And,
Kolya.
Right, exactly. I dislike the child. So I like this more than that, but there are other Dardenne brothers movies that I've liked more than this. I think with Rosetta as a character, even though, as you say, she makes a lot of really bad choices and you might be very frustrated with her, I think it's easier to sort of feel sympathy for her and her situation.
Nope. No, definitely not.
Okay.
Because she makes all these choices that makes everything harder on herself, that you're like, dude, just chill out. Just chill out, Rosetta. Take a chill pill, right? Like you said, the opening scene, she's throwing a fit because she's getting fired. Then when the waffle guy fires her, she's like throwing a fit because she's getting fired. And, she almost like lets a man die so she could have his menial job. And then when he like offers to pay her under the table, like he totally, which, you know, he did something wrong. And she's like, well, you're going to F up, I'm going to F you over. And she just like totally throws him under the bus and like kills his livelihood. Like, she's not a nice person or a character that I root for at all. And when she tried to suicide herself and her mother, I thought maybe that's for the best, Josh. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're not wrong about any of those things. She isn't a nice person, but I think maybe more so again than watching like The Kid with the Bike or even some of others. I mean, another Dardenne movie that I've seen, The Child, it begins with this couple selling their baby. So
well, that's amazing.
You know, it's a lot
What,
hard.
is it because they need money?
Yeah, it's because they need money.
The Child was the Dardenne's second Palme d'Or win.
Right. And it's a highly acclaimed, powerful film. But I think, you know, so in comparison to some of those, I can see where Rosetta is in a position where she's so desperate that you almost understand why she does these things.
I don't think you can. I mean, I don't think you can understand why she would let that guy drown.
No, okay, that's a little much. Yes.
Yeah, like that one was a tough one for me to understand. So like when I look at a movie like this, like we're saying, like you don't always have to like it. What is to appreciate? Yes, the acting's good. I don't care for that like super like shaky follow cam. Like I don't mind obviously movement with the camera and handheld stuff, but it's like I get it. She walks across the street a lot and fast, right? You know. So like what is it that I can take away from this? Performances are fine. Like technically there's nothing, and that's not an insult to them. That's the style, right? There's nothing technically where like, oh, well, they're doing something really unique here technically. Right?
I mean, no, maybe not unique, but I mean, I do think, for example, the follow shot, the sort of long tracking or handheld shot where they are walking, the camera is sort of walking behind the character and you see the back of their head. That is like known as like the Dardenne brothers signature shot. And if you see that in another movie, or at least for me, if I see that in another movie, I always think, well, that's the Dardenne shot.
I mean, I think we've seen that in plenty of movies though.
Well, right. But I think it's something that not necessarily that no one else had ever done, but it's something that they popularized. And I think that became part of their style. And that is a visual representation of their storytelling. The idea that here we are behind this person the whole time.
Then I would argue that it becomes less effective if you overdo it, which they do constantly in this movie.
I guess I didn't feel like it was necessarily overdone. I feel like using it, and there's so many long takes. I mean, I don't want to discount the technical merits of this film because those long takes are difficult to stage.
They are. I'm just saying, like, yes, you're right. That's fair. These are fair points. They're not bad. Like, there's nothing bad in this movie, but it just didn't connect with me either from that story point or from the technical standpoint. Like I didn't take away anything. Like I feel like I should give an example, right? Like,
sure.
Okay, so none of us, and I'm a huge Scorsese fan, we know that, but none of us like New York when we watched it, right?
Right.
But I thought the musical sequences were really good. And that first 20 minutes where De Niro is like a horrible character and you're already disliking him, I thought the way Scorsese moved the camera through that like giant party was awesome, right? So I just don't have that here. I don't have anything to latch onto, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a very, very different movie from that. I think this is a better movie than New York.
Well,
I like this movie more.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, and I'm going to end up giving it the same rating, but like I'm saying, I don't disagree that you're making a fair point.
Okay, well,
I'm just saying, like for me, you know, and like you said, they're so detached. Like it's easier as an audience member to disconnect in that way if you're not like in it.
Right. I mean, I think you're right in the sense that they are not filmmakers who are reaching out to the audience. In a way, I think maybe they are deliberately alienating the audience. They're presenting someone who is unpleasant, and then they're saying like they're challenging you to understand that person.
Yeah, I think that this is the kind of character that you don't see very often for good reason. You know what I mean? It's not someone you really want to follow along, but we all know people like this who just never seem to get out of their own way in trying to make their situation better.
But we've seen unlikable or characters we don't want to root for that are still grab our interest. And this has nothing to do with the actress. This has more to do with like just the monotony of the story. Like it didn't go anywhere. Like what if this was 12 minutes? Would that be different?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're not wrong about the sort of shapelessness of this film, and that's something that's a hallmark of their films. Later Dardenne brothers films have more plot, even if it's fairly minimal, but there's certain films that have like suspense elements to them that don't really exist in this movie. I think, however, there is something like, yes, you could get a lot of this out of a movie, a version that was 12 minutes long, but I think there's something to be said for how much time they are asking you to spend with this unpleasant person, that there's a cumulative effect to that. And maybe it's an unpleasant effect that you didn't like. And I too didn't necessarily like enjoy, but I think there is an extra element here to the fact that it's that long.
It's like you said, Palme d'Or winner, and we read the jury out and we read the other movies there, right? So clearly I'm not of the majority in this one.
Right. No, and that's fine. I mean, you know, you don't have to be in the majority for your criticisms to be legitimate.
Yeah. I want to be a minority.
Okay. Thank you, Green Day.
Yes.
What about the waffles? Did you like the waffles?
I like waffles. We don't have many waffle stands here in America. That's a Belgian thing, clearly. You know? And if there was a waffle stand, I could see myself going to do. We have some interesting waffles here in Las Vegas. That place, Taibbi, they make waffles, but you can get like Thai chicken waffle. Like, so it's not in the waffle, but that's like where they're topping with. You know, you can get some interesting waffles. I'm all for waffles.
Okay.
Did you find the like the cooking segment like strangely fascinating? Like the way he was teaching her how to carry the bag of flour and like how many eggs and all. I just thought it looked.
You're talking
really
about in the
interesting.
industrial.
Yeah. As a food guy,
what was
you know?
it? What was it that?
It was
that
just
got
like
you?
exactly how to carry the big bag of flour.
No, I know what it was.
That.
What was it that got you?
Oh, I just thought it was interesting. It was like very just like almost behind the scenes ish into that kind of a kitchen.
Okay, so you're like, it's like Whiplash, for instance, when you're learning like the beats of how it would be to be a drummer. Like, no, I like stuff like that. So it didn't, maybe because I write about food, it didn't get me because I know that world a little more, but in general I am definitely pro glimpse into a world that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that like procedural aspect where they're showing things about someone's menial job that another movie would just gloss over is actually something that comes up. And my favorite Dardenne brothers movie is The Son, and that's one that has more plot. The idea there is this guy, his child was killed in some sort of, I forget the details, but it's like not an accident, but something where it was like semi-accidental. And so the person who killed his child has been released from prison, and he is like a carpenter, and he hires this person unbeknownst to them. They don't know who he is. He hires the killer of his child as his carpentry apprentice in a sort of obsession way of like, trying to get in with this person. And it is fascinating. He knows, but the killer does not know. He thinks he's just been hired out of prison for a job to kind of rehabilitate him.
I'm not discounting them as filmmakers. I don't know if I never need to watch any other of the Dardenne movies based on everything you've told me. You have not gotten me to go, and I don't mind depressing movies, but like, man, all of these are just like pushing you a little closer towards the edge there, huh?
Yeah, and my point about that was not about what the plot of that movie is, but even though that sounds like actually quite a lot of plot for a Dardenne brothers movie, and there's that suspense of like, what is he going to do? And is the guy going to find out? There is so much carpentry in that movie. And it is really just like focusing on that day-to-day element of their job. And on the one hand, you're like, what the hell with the carpentry? What about, is he going to murder this guy or not? But on the other hand, you're like kind of soothed into this rhythm. And that's part of what it is that you get into that lull and you almost forget about the suspense until it comes back.
But I didn't get that here. It wasn't like these like quinessential waffle making.
No, there's less of that. Yeah.
Also, I want to go back to that follow shot for one thing, because, and it's you guys, you spurred something in me, Josh. I often talk about how I like environment as a character. I think when they do that follow shot so much, I lost the environment completely. Like how, because she's walking everywhere, right? I mean, maybe she takes the bus here and there,
right?
But like, how far is the trailer park from where she's working? How is she getting there? What is that landscape like? I'm not seeing any of that. And when she's walking through the woods, like, it's really, again, I don't know anything about that kind of like area, what I'm seeing. And that pond where like almost everyone who goes in seems to drown, right? It's like that pond, what's going on with that thing, right? I'm just saying, I'm not getting any type of environment from this film other than it's urban and there's a trailer park on the edge of it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true. You don't necessarily, like, sometimes she takes the bus and sometimes she walks and you're like, how far is this from this? Where is the waffle stand? I think that's fair, but I did feel like I got a sense of the environment, especially in the trailer park with the skeezy guy who's like the landlord, and just the depressing sort of nature of like who winds up there. Yeah, I felt like there was some environmental setting aspect to that came across.
Maybe
Jason
I'm
does
reading
not
in.
agree.
Yeah, I don't think he does, but maybe I'm reading into it too much. But I thought it was like more so she doesn't pay attention to any of that, and so it's kind of why it's there.
Maybe because it's second nature to her, and like that's, I mean, literally like every day it's like walk very fastly, take a bus, go into town, try to find a job.
That's
Go
all
home,
she cares about.
try to kill me and my mother. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
sequence.
let's talk about the ending.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically things have not gone well for her.
Yeah.
And
but she at this point she actually has a job
She-
after she screwed that dude out of his job.
she does, but you get the sense that maybe she does feel the guilt for having done it that way. And so she calls and she decides she quits her job. She calls the boss. She says, I quit. And she, her mom is passed out from drunkenness.
Yes.
She drags the mom back into the trailer. She stops up the door. She does, however, make herself a nice egg to eat first.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not a waffle.
No.
And not an egg that I would eat. It's like a hard-boiled egg.
Yeah, she could have hung out with Cool Hand Luke and had a egg eating
Are
contest.
you a hard-boiled egg guy, Josh? I see you as a hard-boiled
No, I don't
egg.
really eat eggs of any kind.
Yeah, Dave.
We
hard-boiled egg.
love hard-boiled
Yeah, I
eggs
feel
in
like
this house.
we had this discussion when we talked
I
about
think
Cool
we
Hand
did.
Yeah,
Luke.
we probably did. I'm not a hard-boiled egg person.
But
If I was going to do a murder-suicide on me and my mom, which I've thought about many times, and I'd probably make us an omelet first or
Yeah.
something like
All
that,
right.
maybe some scrambled
Yeah,
eggs.
that's nice.
No.
But the point is, right, she's decided we're going to end it all. So, and she turns on the gas on the stove and she lies down and it's like, this is over. And then the gas runs out.
Right.
And it's comical. It is funny. And I think it's meant to be funny.
I like that part of the movie. But at the same time, had that been the ending and the murder-suicide had gone through, I'd have been like, this is a justified ending and I'm okay with this movie ending here.
Right. But I mean, weirdly, there is a kind of a moment. So the gas runs out. She goes to the landlord. She gets a new canister of gas and she's trying to haul it back. It's very heavy. And then the guy that she screwed out of the waffle job shows up on his little moped.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's kind of harassing her. He's like riding around her, not saying anything, and just,
He helps her, though.
he's angry. But that's the final shot of this is she falls down and he helps her up. And you have this look on her face like maybe there's some hope in the world. And that's what we end on.
Well, he's been nice to her the whole time, except when she, tries to, not even after the murder part. He's like, you tried to, but you didn't.
Right.
So I guess we're still cool, right?
Right.
It's after she takes him out of the job. That actor is Fabrizio Rongione.
Yes. But I guess what I'm just saying is that, like, after all the depressingness and the sort of comical ridiculousness of the failed suicide, there is a tiny sliver of hope at the end of this film.
Unless it's like, thanks for helping me back up. Now I can go finish my murder-suicide, right?
And that's possible. We don't know where it's going to go from there. But I choose to believe maybe that they're giving you a little bit of hope at the end of the film.
How un-Dardanian of you.
Maybe. So I feel like at this point, should we rate this?
We've covered this thing pretty well through. It gets 2.5 from me. And I think 2.5 is always like the borderline of like, not good, not bad. It's usually worth watching. I will tell you if it's a disappointment at 2.5. This is not a disappointment. It's just 2.5 for me.
Yeah. So, we didn't say we have to make
murder
sure
suicides.
Murder suicide. I was going to say out of waffles, but you can
murder suicide by waffle.
There, I don't know how that would work.
Well,
but
you poison the waffle.
Poison the waffles. Yeah, good idea.
Hey, maybe next time you make a chapo, you poison it, and you see how that works.
Not
hey,
well.
Josh.
Yes.
You ever thought about doing a murder-suicide?
So I'm going to rate this a 3 out of 5, I think. And I'm only a little bit ahead of you. Again, to me, 3 is like, it's worthwhile for what it is, but I didn't necessarily love it. It's hard to watch. Absolutely. If you're not familiar with the Dardennes, go in knowing that this is not going to make you feel good, but I think it is an accomplishment to appreciate. So Dave, what would you rate this?
I'm going to go with 3.5. Since we're defining our ratings this episode, that means that I liked it a lot, but I probably wouldn't watch it again, but it's good. It's very good.
Easier or harder to watch than 4 months, 3 days, whatever.
Oh yeah, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days.
Yeah, which we covered in what year?
2007. Yeah,
Palme d'Or winner, the Romanian abortion movie, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of shaky cam in this, so that kind of.
I think this is harder to watch than the Romania abortion film, where they almost show an abortion that I had to turn away with when they showed that.
Yeah. That is a tough call, whether this is harder to watch than that. I mean, I don't think, I was going to say, I don't think either of them I would want to watch again, but 4 months, 3 weeks, 2 days, I have watched twice.
Yeah,
I watched it again for the podcast.
It's an hour longer too.
Yeah.
But I would watch that one again before this one.
Dave, would you, are you going to watch another Dardenne Brothers movie, you think?
I think I probably will. That one you were talking about sounds pretty good to me.
It is good. That, like, of the ones I've seen, that's the one that I would recommend the most.
Yeah.
But
I'm just gonna watch like a carpentry show and not worry about all this.
That's fair. So we'll come back then in a moment and talk about the legacy of Rosetta.
Josh, before we do, which is harder to watch, Dardenne or Romanian abortions?
I mean, the Dardennes, like, cumulatively, I think it's harder to watch, but that film on its own maybe is tougher to watch than Rosetta.
See, and I think I like that movie better, but the technical stuff I took away from that was impressive for me.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it's a tough choice.
And by technical stuff, I mean like film technique, not how to perform an abortion illegally. Okay, let's clear that up.
Glad we clarified that.
Let's come back after this.
Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1999, we have been talking about Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or winner Rosetta from the Dardenne brothers. And as we've said, this was kind of their big breakthrough. This was their fourth fiction feature, but this was the one that really brought them to this wider international audience.
I have a question for you, Josh.
Yes.
Do you know of any of we talked about a lot of the narrative stuff. What kind of documentaries did they make?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen, and those are, I think, harder to find. I think they may have been done, some of them for like Belgian TV, but I think it's probably a similar, like, naturalistic day in the life kind of stuff.
I wonder what the subjects are, if they're as bleak as this.
I don't know. Like I said, I've seen a number of their other films. I mentioned The Son and The Child. Also, I've seen Lorna's Silence. And probably their most famous film, 2 Days, 1 Night, with Marion Cotillard, she was nominated for an Oscar for Best Actress for that film. Right. Another depressing film where she plays a woman who works at a factory and has to somehow convince all of her coworkers to take pay cuts so that she doesn't get fired.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention something else about The Son.
Yeah. Olivier Gourmet. Yeah.
Who played the waffle boss in this movie.
Yes.
He won Best Actor at Cannes in 2002 for The Son.
And both he and Fabrizio Rongione, who are in this film, have both worked extensively with the Dardennes in multiple other Dardenne brothers films.
We said Émilie Dequenne, very successful actress. She won Best Actress at Cannes in 2012 for Our Children. Probably the movie that kind of did the best business in America was Brotherhood of the Wolf.
Yeah, which I remember really liking when that came out, but it's been so long I don't recall her role in it and what she did. But
The Girl on the Train, that kind of was a popular one. I think.
Yeah, I mean, although all three of these actors working mainly in French film and Belgian film, not really movies that necessarily make it here in America. I did think it was interesting that this is such a breakout role for Émilie Dequenne, but unlike the male co-stars here, she did not work with the Dardennes again. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know why that
Well,
is.
now you said you remember liking Brotherhood of the Wolf. Right?
Yes.
Now, did you note if she was chunky or not in that film?
I did not, and I'm not sure.
So it had no effect on.
I don't
if the
think
film
so.
Was good or
And
if
like,
she was good at all.
And like, did she turn into a werewolf in that movie? And was the werewolf chunky?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Was it gamey?
I don't recall.
Because these are things that some critics find important.
Obviously so. Yeah. I mean, I think it's been like 20 years since I saw that movie, so that wasn't a note that I had, but good question.
I mean, 5, like I said, best Belgian film awards, the Andre Cavans. I don't know who Andre Cavans is. I should look that up. And they were also given the Grand Cross of the Order of the Crown in Belgium.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think Belgium doesn't necessarily have a large body of, internationally known filmmakers. So
in Bruges,
which is not, it's an American or British film.
It's not. Yeah,
it's definitely not a Belgian film.
I know that.
Yeah, I mean they won that second Palme d'Or for The Child. I didn't look this up, but I would bet that every film they've made since Rosetta has played at Cannes. That's
right.
just kind
I
of
think
the way
Young
that it
Ahmed
is.
they won Best Director for. And we mentioned, so they're just rocking Europe.
They are, and they have another film I think that's set to go into production later this year that will depress everyone.
No doubt.
Yes. And one other weird thing, this movie was erroneously credited with inspiring the Rosetta law in Belgium that was about paying teenagers minimum wage, but the Dardennes have said that actually it had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, they said that was already in the process. But what's interesting there is like that capturing that zeitgeist moment of something that's important as it's happening.
Right. And people assume that this must have had that effect because it's such an influential film. So our Dardenne Brothers Film Festival starts.
Yeah. Let's not do that, please.
No. And it's after watching The Kid with the Bike, it'll be a while for me, I think, before I get back to watching another Dardenne film.
This is our first from Belgium, I think, that we've covered.
Yeah.
Our 9 seasons of Awesome Movie Year, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, and again, regardless of our mixed response, the Dardennes are major important international cinema auteurs.
And we're not discounting the worth of the work, right?
Right.
So that's important.
Right. I mean, I think this is absolutely, this film and all their films are not for everyone.
They're not, and I'm part of everyone.
Clearly. So that is Rosetta, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. If you're depressed, reach out to us on social media.
Yeah, reach out. Dave is a certified counselor for making.
No, definitely not.
Oh.
Definitely not.
You ever talk someone off the ledge, Dave?
Asking the hard questions in this episode, Jason.
I've done it a few times. And that's a fact.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, no, I can't say
who
that.
Knows what would have happened? But
right.
I mean, and honestly, like if I'm the one who has to talk you off the ledge,
you're in bad shape. Yeah.
Social media, Josh.
Sure.
Jason Harris Comedy on Facebook and Instagram. J Harris Comedy on Twitter. Go for Jason.com. Having as tough a time succeeding as Rosetta.
Oof, yeah.
Awesome.
Drowning in that pond.
Yeah. Awesome. But it does like waffles. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
AwesomeMovieYear.com. All right. Doing okay for itself. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter.
You can check me out at joshbellhateseverything.com, where I think I wrote a little thing on the Sun way back. Also at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook and at Signal Bleed on Twitter. And listen to our producer David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod, and join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces.
And do we have a less depressing thing coming up in our next episode?
We totally do, Josh. You're going to not only not be depressed, you're going to work off whatever chunks you got on your body, because we have a great music documentary. We're going to Cuba for the Buena Vista Social Club.
And I really hope we can hear more of that accent.
That wasn't an accent. That's how you say Cuba if you're speaking Spanish.
All right. Well, we'll get into that. Tune in for Buena Vista Social Club. And thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
an All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.